Welcome to Exploration Overland. My name is Zach, and today on How It Works, we're going to be talking about this, GMRS radios. Stay tuned, guys. Okay, guys, we're still out here in the woods, and Mother Nature is still not quite playing as nicely, but we will fight through it, and we will make sure this happens. So, why are we talking about GMRS radios? Because GMRS radio, at least here in the United States, has become kind of the gold standard when it comes to radio communication out on the trails. CBS radios are still used in some instances, but they are, quickly disappearing, and most people have turned to GMRS radio for several different reasons. One, you get a much longer range than you can with a CB radio. Two, there are more channels that you can go through. And three, honestly guys, it's a little bit more reliable than a CB radio. CB radios nowadays are mostly used by truck drivers, things of that nature, and at one time they were great out on the trail, but they have been, quickly surpassed by this, because this, once again, longer range, and two, it will get a signal through a lot of the forest where CBS radio, it would start getting staticky. So let's get into kind of the background of the GMRS radio. So as you guys know, radios go back a very long way, and they used to be just kind of, in a sense, a two-way communication between two devices, and they were twins. So you could only communicate through those two. And then over the years it has progressed, and then we had CBs, and now we have GMRS radios and GMRS hybrid style radios, which we'll get into here in a second. But what does GMRS stand for? It stands for General Mobile Radio Service. Yes, it is a radio service that uses radio frequencies so that you can communicate between one another. It is a two-way communication between people. Now, it isn't just this device and have a twin of this and that's all you can hear. No. It is on, the federal radio airwaves, which means you can hear people all over. You really can. If they're in your general area and you are on the same channels, you're going to pick up on their communication. It is just open frequency and you're going to hear them. Which is why if you have a GMRS radio and you've turned it on and all of a sudden you're hearing other chatter on the channels, that is why. It is all open so everyone can communicate. Now GMRS came around in 1987. It's when they kind of perfected that General Mobile radio service. And it took the place over CBs because it was short range communication that was a little bit better than what the CB could handle, but it wasn't quite up to ham status. You have ham radios where literally you can communicate hundreds of miles away to all sorts of other people, and you have to have a handle and things of that nature. But that's where GMRS came in, and like I said before, they came into play in the wheeling area because they became a little bit more reliable than just a typical CB radio. So you heard me say there is a hybrid style GMRS, and that is what we all use when we go wheeling. And what it is it is an FRS/GMRS. What does that mean? It is a family radio service / the General Mobile Radio Service. What does that mean? Because there is a difference between a GMRS and an FRS/GMRS. A GMRS radio, you have to have a license. That's right, a license to operate. Now, unlike a ham radio where you have to, take a little test, whatnot, and study and things of that nature, and it's not super difficult, but then you get it and you get your license that way. GMRS, you don't have to take a test, but you do have to send in to the federal, radio service, the communications network, whatever, that you have to send in your application. It's about $35 now, and it's valid for 10 years. And what that does is it allows you to use an actual GMRS radio on frequencies that you get access to, frequencies that basically you can have more of a private conversation over the radio versus it being an open radio, basically an open channel. A family radio service is basically your walkie-talkie. That is what that is, a general little walkie-talkie that you can communicate with somebody else and you can pick up on other people. That is what that is. The GMRS aspect of it gives you one more channels, a little bit wider of a spectrum, But that's why you have the open channel. There's no privacy on our off-road GMRS radios because it is an FRS GMRS radio. And what that means is because it is open frequency, it's not private, we don't need a license for this. That's why it gets placed in that classification, because with this handheld radio and the Midland radio I have in the Jeep, which we'll see here in a minute, the only channels you can access are 1 through 22. Those are the only channels open to us. That's it. And they're all public channels. They're all open frequency channels. There's no privacy on any of those channels, and those are the only channels you can use. And with an FRS GMRS radio, you can't go over 2 watts of power. It limits you. It literally limits you. You cannot go over 2 watts of power, meaning your signal strength can't be more than 2 watts. Anything over 2 watts, you have to have a license for, because at that point, it is then a full GMRS system, and you have a stronger signal and have more control over the airways over everybody else, in a sense. So you have to have a license for that. But everything else, the FRS GMRS channels 1 through 22, are all either 2 watts or lower. And I actually have the number right here. So channels 1 through 7 and 15 through 22 are all 2 watts. You will have 2 watts of power through those. Channels 8 through 14 is half a watt of power. That's why channels 8 through 14, the frequency and your abilities are a little bit lower because the signal strength is less. Those are the big differences. That's why when we buy Midland radios or our radio systems for off-roading or our handhelds, we're able to use them without a license. They're all under 2 watts or 2 watts or lower, and they are considered a family radio service, which is free to use for everyone. And it's just, you have no privacy during your communications. Anyone can hear you and you can hear anybody. So it's one of those, being mindful of what you say over the radio comes into play. All right, here in the Jeep, I have basically a permanent radio system in the Jeep. It's actually sitting right here. This is my GMRS radio with the handheld right here that is permanently installed and mounted in the Jeep. And I also have a handheld. The handheld comes into play for if I have somebody else with me and I'm filming and I'm running up and down the trail, I can signal to them to go, to stop, what's happening. If I'm spotting somebody and they can't hear me, it works. Or if, and this has been the more case of not, I am wheeling with somebody that has no radio. So they end up getting my handheld so I can communicate with them while we are on the trail. Because it is important to have some form of communication service, whether it's just the handheld, guys, or a permanently installed radio in your rig. One, you can communicate with other people. You can actually, like my Midland radio, actually connects to the National Weather Service, and it can tell me what the weather is. And if you're in convoy, guys, being able to communicate with one another without, hey, they're having to stop or yell or anything is huge. First off, you don't want to be yelling out on the trail in the hope someone hears you. It's really disturbing, like disturbing for nature and disturbing for others that are on the trail. And 2, it's just, life is easier. Something happens, you're not having to try and figure out a way to signal to the person that you're with or people you're with that, hey, stop, I need help, you can just call on the radio. It's really simple. But that's how it works. Honestly, you turn it on, and like my handheld here, there are all sorts of different things that I can do with it, but I have the ability to go through channels 1 through 22, and I can just choose a channel. And once I set that channel, as long as the other people I'm with are on that channel, I can communicate to them. So if I flip my little switch here and hit my radio, radio's on, and I am on channel 17. So what we're going to do here in a second is I'm going to go walk way over there, and I'm going to show you just how simple it is to use the radio, guys, because there are a lot of people, though it is simple and it's like a walkie-talkie, there are a ton of people out here that don't understand the concept of how it works, because there's so many different things going on, what channel should be used, all that. So let's just show you quickly how this all works. Okay guys, we're gonna walk this a little bit away, because like any radio, if you are too close to the other one, you're gonna get that screeching high-pitched noise, and it's really, really loud. Now, while you guys are here, I've also left you guys in there. So we're gonna talk a little bit, and I'm going to explain to you just how easy this is. So like any radio, you have your buttons here. These buttons are just kind of like repeaters. So you can hit like it, and it's like a call button that sends out a call signal to somebody, you know, kind of like a phone to pick up or radio in. And then you have a repeater one, which if you click it, it will repeat what the last person said. That GMRS has it, this GMRS has it. It's very helpful because sometimes you don't always hear what people are saying over the radio because it can get muffled or just doesn't sound right, so being able to repeat it is super helpful. So here we go. Alright guys, you are now hearing me through the radio as I'm talking to you guys in the Jeep, which is really helpful, because if I didn't have this, I would have to shout to you guys from where I am, just so you would all be able to hear me. And this becomes helpful for when we are on the trail with other people and have the ability to talk to them. Like I said, these are open frequencies. Someone could be listening to me right now. It is what it is. But in these purposes, this is the point of why we have radios in our vehicles, so we can communicate with convoy and other people that we are with. See? And just like that, guys. This is how it works. And then somebody, if I had somebody else with me, would be in the Jeep and would respond back to me. And it would be perfect. And that's how the communication goes. That is why we carry radios with us, especially if you, and guys, literally these are mostly used if you're traveling with somebody, because then you have communication, you can talk with each other, because there's nothing worse than, I'm sorry, wheeling with people and you can't talk to them, and you're, you know, it's just you and they're in their own vehicle and it's just really quiet. You can't point out things, you can't have a conversation like they're there next to you. They're just really convenient to have. See guys, it's really that simple. So easy to use, and it makes life so much easier for you and people you're traveling with on the trail. Now, GMRSs can get expensive. Certain ones are very expensive. Ones like Midland Radio, mine was almost $200. It's just what it is, and they have different styles where you can control everything through the mic, you can control everything from the head unit. It just depends on what you're looking for. And they also have different antennas you can use based off of what kind of signal you want. I use a ghost antenna, so I don't get the biggest range, but it's enough for who I'm traveling with. They also make UHF, big, huge. It looks like something from an, you know, on an Australian rig kind of antennas that get a much wider range and are very helpful. And then you have things like my handheld. I think I paid about 50 bucks online for this. They have some that are cheaper. You have some that are more expensive. It just depends on what you want, guys, and how much you're willing to spend. Right? Just remember, like anything, the cheaper it is, the more likely it won't work properly or it'll break sooner. And then you have things that are more expensive. Look for the thing that's in your price range and read reviews. Read reviews on what it is. I will leave a link to this handheld and my Midland in the description below, so you guys can go check them out. None of these, Midland's not a sponsor of my channel. This is not a sponsor of my channel, guys. It's a product I use and people need to have. I wheel with too many people that don't have radios and they need one, and it's so easy, but they don't. But that is how it works, guys. It's so easy. So make sure you have communications. Help your fellow wheeler out when you are out here, and so you're not shouting and making a ton of noise, and it makes driving in your convoy so much easier and you're not missing out. But thank you all for joining me on how it works today. I hope you found it informational, and I will catch you all next time. So take care, guys.